I think like a lot of folks, I was still in enterprise software sales when I started investing in real estate. So I was straddling two different worlds, which gave me some hesitancy about starting something. In hindsight, uh, starting a podcast, having a group meetup, or doing anything in that respect would not have been in conflict with my day job, but it would have been a really fast jump start into a weekly kind of daily motion in terms of building a community and building relationships and starting to get myself out there like, hey, this is the job that I'm working towards. So the thing that really just got me going was more or less hold your nose and jump into the deep end and start figuring out how to swim. And that's what I did. The first podcast I listened to, I hated my voice, I hated the questions. But the feedback that I got from people who listened said, wow, it's well produced. Those were good questions. And so I just kind of blindly kept going down the hallway a little bit further, towards the light, so to speak. So there was some trial by error and just, at the end of the day, try not to pay attention to my voice or what others thought, but just trying to produce good content and be really, really curious. I think curiosity was a big driver that helped me kind of push through any fears that I had.
That's awesome. And I mean, I can relate to everything you're talking about. And I bet I get 3 calls a week, people asking about how to do a podcast or how I've done it or things like that. And, I was very hesitant as well to pull the trigger, to launch the show and to really commit. And because I was worried about, the sound. I was worried about all these things, all these details, right? About the show and am I doing it the best that I can? And so I was very hesitant. And, I was talking to a mentor and Joe Fairless, I'll say. And he just, he helped remind me that, done is better than perfect. Right. Done is better than perfect. And so, that helped me to really change my mindset. And I also hated the way that I sounded, but I hired somebody to edit my audio just so I didn't have to listen to it. And because I understood that if I listened to them, I'm probably not ever going to launch. I'm just not going to like the way that I sound. I'm gonna hear the ums and ahs and all those things. And I'm not going to think it's as good as it should be. But I had to tell myself, I had to remember that, the only way I'm going to get better at this is just doing it. And so, I'm going to have to get through that initial, 20, 30 shows, whatever, before I really fall into using a mic, before I really fall into speaking, being recorded. And I still mess up all the time, but I'm getting better, right? And I understand that it's going to take many more shows. I'm getting better all the time. But if I hadn't launched, guess what? I'd still be in fear of those first 20 shows.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that the podcast is a good metaphor for any entrepreneur's journey. Those first 20 or so times that you do it, it feels awkward, it feels uncomfortable, but committing to doing it. So I publish every Thursday. So I've got a weekly show and just the clock is kind of ticking that every Thursday, here are the 6 or 7 things that I need to do to make sure that I get a good show out the door. And I guess I talked about earlier, just the daily, weekly, kind of monthly, what are you measuring to make sure that you're moving forward in your business? I think that, thought leadership, whether it's a monthly event that you're hosting or a podcast, whatever that looks like, getting committed and putting yourself out there is an excellent metaphor for the same type of discipline and work that you need to do to go out and put together a real estate deal.